I clutched my stomach as I stepped into the emergency room, each breath short and shallow. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed like mosquitoes in July, and the cold tile beneath my feet sent chills up my spine. I didn't cry out, lived long enough to know that dignity doesn't come easy, especially not in a hospital waiting room. They told me to sit, so I did. For 30 minutes, my name was finally called, and I stood with effort. A nurse in scrubs with a glossy ponytail barely looked up from her tablet. "Follow me," she said, bored. I limped behind her, clutching my side, hoping she might notice. She didn't. When I stopped to catch my breath near the nurse's station, she rolled her eyes. That tiny movement said everything. My pain wasn't urgent, my presence wasn't important. "Room 12, she barked. No smile, no patience. I lay on the hospital bed, cold and ignored, as she took my vitals like I was a doll, missing pieces. "Pain level?" she asked, staring at her screen. 8, I whispered. "Okay," she said, not even glancing at me. She tapped the tablet. That was it. No expression, no concern. I tried to speak again, but she had already turned around. Hours passed. A doctor appeared, spoke for 2 minutes, and left. They said it might be indigestion, sent me home with antacids and a slip of paper. In the car, I cried, not just from the pain in my belly, but from the deeper ache in my chest. It wasn't just what happened, it was how I disappeared before their eyes. The next night, the pain grew worse. I collapsed in my kitchen. Amba, my daughter, called an ambulance this time. When we arrived, guess who greeted me at the ER desk? Ponytail. Nurse Candace. She gave me that same tired look and muttered, "You're back." I nodded, couldn't even speak. "Wheelchair," she called out lazily. This time they put me in the hallway. Not even a room, just a gurney by the water cooler. People passed me by, nurses chatting, interns laughing, stretchers rolling. I gritted my teeth and waited. Across the hall, I saw an elderly man groaning. No one helped him either. A nurse walked by, stepped around a puddle of something dark near his bed, and didn't even blink. This wasn't just happening to me. I felt invisible, like a ghost trapped in a hospital meant for people who still had used. Hours went by. No doctor, no medicine, just me and the rhythmic beeping of someone else's machine. I saw Candace again. She was laughing now, her head thrown back, smiling with someone from radiology. Her laugh echoed off the walls like a slap. That was the moment. Not when I was sent home in pain. Not when I was told it was all in my head. It was when she laughed. Right then, I knew something inside me had changed, and I wasn't going to stay quiet anymore. They finally admitted me after midnight. The young doctor with a nervous smile told me I had a severe gallbladder infection. One more day, and it could have ruptured. He said it like a passing fact, as if my body hadn't been screaming for help all along. They wheeled me into a shared room. Curtains hung limp between beds, and the air smelled like bleach and old soup. I asked for something for the pain. A nurse, I didn't catch her name, said she'd check with the doctor. Then she never returned. Candace showed up again the next morning with her usual expression, bored and busy. She dropped a tray of water and pills on the side table and muttered, "Don't spill it." No eye contact, no kindness, just instructions. I tried to sit up, groaning as pain pulled through my side. She stood there, watching. I swear I saw her smirk, just a flicker at the corner of her mouth. Maybe I imagined it, but my body reacted before my mind could reason. It tensed in anger. There was no kindness in her tone, no softness in her hands, and for the first time, I realized something cruel. Some people go into healthcare not to care for others, but to feel power over the vulnerable. I lay back on the flat pillow, staring at the ceiling tiles. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about every older woman who gets ignored, every grandmother called dramatic, every patient brushed off like they're a burden. I was alone in that bed, but my pain carried memories of every woman like me who had been treated the same. And suddenly, I wasn't just hurting. I was wide awake. Amber came the next day. She looked beautiful, as always, fresh-faced, polished, smelling like peppermint lotion and deadlines. She kissed my forehead, sat down, then pulled out her phone. "I told you to take it easy on that spicy food, Mom," she said. I tried to smile. They said it wasn't food-related. She shrugged. "Still, you know how dramatic you can get when you're not feeling well." Dramatic. That word hit me like a slap. I looked at her and saw a woman. I raised, fierce, capable, successful. And now she sat across from me, completely unable to see that I was scared, that I had been neglected. "You weren't here," I whispered. "You didn't see how they treated me." Amber sighed and put her phone down. "Mom, you're just lonely. It's making things feel worse." Lonely, dramatic, overreacting. I turned away from her and stared at the foredrip. If my own daughter couldn't believe me, then who would? But maybe that was the problem. I had spent my life being strong, handling things quietly, privately, never asking for help, never showing weakness. They had no idea who I really was. I laid there in silence as Amber left for her next meeting, and in that silence, a single thought bloomed like fire in my chest. Maybe they all needed a reminder. The thing about getting older is that people assume your story's already been told, but mine was still sharp and humming beneath the surface. As I lay in that hospital bed, I thought back to a time when people used to lean in when I spoke, when I signed deals that reshaped companies, when my name made headlines in business journals. Wasn't always this quiet. I had built one of the first AI-powered health systems back in the day, software that helped hospitals organize patient data, detect early signs of infection, reduce nurse burnout. Irony, isn't it? I sold the company after my husband died. I didn't need the spotlight anymore. I wanted peace. So I vanished, cashed out, bought a quiet home, and stepped away. But the world didn't ask what I had done. It only asked what I looked like now. Gray hair, slower steps, maybe a little bent at the shoulders. That's what they saw. They didn't see the woman who negotiated million-dollar contracts or stood in front of Congress to defend elder care policies. They didn't see me. Lying there in that sterile bed, I felt something stir. A restlessness I hadn't felt in years. Not bitterness, not yet. Just a sharp awareness that the fire hadn't gone out. I might look small now, but I remembered every tool I used to climb, every contact, every lesson, every time I had to hold a smile while being underestimated. They didn't know who I was, but they would. The next morning, I sat upright when Candace entered the room. I studied her, the way she glanced at my chart without really reading, the way her hands moved quick, careless, like I was an object, not a person. She didn't recognize the shift in me. "Not yet. Morning," she said flatly, placing pills on the table without even looking at me. "Morning," I answered, clear and calm. "Do you enjoy your job?" That caught her. She blinked and gave a little laugh, dry, irritated. "I enjoy my weekends." I nodded. "It shows." Her eyes narrowed, just for a second, before she turned and left. I watched her go, my fingers folding slowly in my lap. Later, I watched her ignore an elderly man struggling with his walker. I watched her roll her eyes when a frail woman asked for water again. It wasn't just me. It was all of us. Candace wasn't overworked. She wasn't burned out. She was cruel, and no one had ever called her out because people like me, old women, rarely speak up. But I was done whispering, because now I had a plan. They discharged me 3 days later. I left with a prescription bottle and bruises on my arms from my V's that were placed too roughly. Home. I sat on my porch with a blanket over my knees and my phone in hand. I stared at the screen for a long time before I made the call. Mark answered. On the second ring. "Clara, wow. Haven't heard from you in, 4 years?" 6, I said with a smile. "I didn't think you'd still have the same number." "Of course I do. You gave it to me." I laughed, but then my voice dropped. "Mark, how hard would it be to buy a hospital wing?" He paused. "Why?" "I want to make sure no one else gets treated like I did. I want to own the space where the ignored gets seen." He exhaled slowly. "Clara, that's not a small thing." "I never did small things," I replied. "You remember." He chuckled. "You've still got it." Scheduled a meeting. He agreed to pull some strings, look into real estate options, run the numbers. It wouldn't be easy. But then again, nothing worth doing ever is, and I had more than money. I had a reason. Weeks passed. I moved through them quietly, deliberately. Mark introduced me to the right people, lawyers, brokers, hospital board contacts. Turns out, the hospital wasn't doing so well financially. A silent investor buying up a wing wasn't the scandal I expected. It was a relief to them. They welcomed it. I made sure to keep my name off the press. I didn't want attention. I wanted precision. I purchased the North Wing, the same one where I'd been left in pain. It was mine now. The papers were signed on a rainy Thursday morning. I didn't wear anything fancy, just a gray sweater and clean jeans. But when I held that pen in my hand, I felt 20 years younger. I was no longer the patient who was ignored. I was the woman who owned the floor they walked on. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. I wanted the renovations to speak first. Fresh paint, better lighting, new chairs in the waiting area, a private room for every patient, a name change. The Clara Emerson Recovery Center. Mark offered to host a grand opening ceremony. I said no. Let the staff see it with their own eyes. Let them wonder. Let her wonder. Because Nurse Candace would still be working there, and the next time we met, she wouldn't be rolling her eyes. She'd be looking up. It took 2 months. The wing that once smelled like bleach and rusted trays now smelled like fresh paint and hope. I walked through the hall quietly the morning it reopened. Nurses buzzed around, adjusting to the new layout. Patients were being settled into clean rooms with real windows and soft blankets. I watched them from the corner. No one noticed me at first, just the way I wanted it. The new sign had gone up that morning, brushed steel letters across the entry, the Clara Emerson Recovery Center. I stood there for a long moment, reading my own name like it belonged to someone else. Then I turned and walked in. Heads turned slowly, first curious, then confused. A few nurses whispered to each other. One pointed. That's when I saw her. Candace. She stood by the desk, clipboard in hand, halfway through barking an order. She looked up. And froze. Candace's jaw dropped, and for a moment, she didn't move. I kept walking, calm, quiet. Mrs. Emerson, she stammered, stepping forward. Is everything all right? I smiled, just a little. Everything's finally where it belongs. She blinked. I didn't know you were involved in all this. You didn't ask, I said gently. No one ever asked. Behind her, a young nurse wheeled an elderly man into his room. She was smiling, genuinely. That used to be me in that chair. Candace shifted uncomfortably. I had no idea you were someone important. I tilted my head. I was always someone important. You just didn't see it. I saw her shrink a little, suddenly unsure of the ground beneath her. Did I do something? She asked, voice low. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She knew. I walked past her and into one of the new rooms. The bed was neatly made, the air warm, the view peaceful. A soft chair sat in the corner. I lowered myself into it and let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to raise my voice or demand an apology. This was louder. This was justice that whispered, and I had all the time in the world to let it echo. I didn't buy the wing just to put my name on a wall. I bought it to rewrite what care should feel like. The first thing I did was hire 2 new staff advocates. Their only job, to visit every patient every day and ask one simple question. Are you being treated with kindness? We installed security cameras not for punishment, but for protection. I brought in a retired nurse named Helen who had worked hospice for 30 years. She trained the younger staff in compassion, empathy, and bedside presence. Not medical skills, heart skills. Within a week, the change in energy was visible. Patients smiled. Families thanked us. But not everyone was happy. Candace filed a formal complaint, said she felt targeted. The board reviewed it, and then they reviewed her file. 3 other patients had logged concerns about her attitude in past years. She wasn't fired. She was demoted. From senior RN to float nurse. Shift rotations. No permanent unit. She could still work. But now she'd have to care. It was after hours when she found me in the quiet lounge near the east window. I was sipping tea. She stood at the doorway, unsure. I need to speak with you, she said. I gestured to the chair across from me. You may. She sat, slowly, like her legs had lost strength. Then she began to cry. I never meant to hurt anyone, she whispered. I didn't know you were someone. I watched her wipe her face, her mascara smudging. I was tired. I was overworked. I know I was short with people. But it was never personal. She looked up, searching my eyes for something, maybe sympathy. Maybe a free pass. You were never tired enough to stop laughing at suffering, I said softly. You were never too busy to roll your eyes. She looked away. I guess I deserve this. I stood and walked to the window. It's not about what you deserve. It's about what they deserve. The ones you made feel invisible. She sniffed. I want to change. I hope you do, I said. But that's your work, not mine. I walked out and left her there, tears in her hands. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel cruel. I just felt done. Sometimes justice isn't loud. Sometimes it arrives on quiet feet, wearing pearls. A few weeks later, I sat in the staff lounge watching orientation for our new hires. 6 fresh faces, young, nervous, eager. They were from neighborhoods that rarely saw opportunity, kids who had grown up taking care of their grandparents, who knew what kindness looked like even before they were taught. I had partnered with a local scholarship fund, something small, something quiet. We paid for their training, housing stipends, uniforms, but the deal was simple. Compassion first, always. One girl named Marisol stood out. She had gentle eyes and a steady voice. I watched her help a patient to the bathroom on her first day without being asked. She even warmed the towel for them. I remembered a nurse doing that for my husband when he was dying. I made a note to speak with her later. She'd go far, maybe farther than me, and that would be my greatest success. Amber showed up unannounced. She walked in wearing her usual blazer and heels, holding a coffee she didn't drink. I gave her a tour. She followed me silently. When we passed the plaque at the entrance, she stopped. The Clara Emerson Recovery Center. She turned to me slowly. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't think you'd believe me, I said. You didn't believe me when I said I was in pain. Her face fell. She set the coffee down, untouched. I didn't know how bad it got, she whispered. I thought you were being dramatic again. That word, I said. It hurts more than the pain did. Tears welled in her eyes. I'm sorry, I nodded. I believed her. She walked beside me for the rest of the tour, asking questions, touching the walls like she was seeing the world for the first time. I didn't know this part of you, she said. I didn't stop being myself just because I got old, I replied. She took my hand. I see that now. We didn't hug. We didn't cry in each other's arms. We just stood there. And for once, she looked at me and saw me whole. The doctors were right, my recovery was slow. Some mornings I still wake with a dull ache beneath my ribs. Some nights, my legs feel like sandbags. But I don't complain. Not because I don't feel it, because now, when I walk into my wing, I see the reason I kept going. Patients wave from their rooms. Nurses greet me with soft voices and warm smiles. Volunteers offer coffee to visitors who look like they haven't slept. This place breathes differently now. Sometimes I sit in the family room near the big window and listen. I hear laughter, gentle, not careless. I hear nurses humming. I hear life. One man told me last week, this place doesn't feel like a hospital anymore. It feels like someone cares. He doesn't know I'm the reason. That's fine. I don't need them to thank me. I just want them to heal better than I did. I still see Candace sometimes. She works nights now, floats between wings. No title on her badge. We pass each other quietly in the halls. She doesn't roll her eyes anymore. She doesn't speak unless spoken to. And when our eyes meet, if they meet, she looks down. There's no hate in me when I see her. No bitterness, just memory. She was a storm in my life. But I built something from the rubble. She doesn't need to apologize again, and I don't need to forgive her to move on. My strength didn't come from punishing her. It came from surviving her, from standing back up. From turning pain into purpose. Now, when I sit beside a patient, I don't tell them my story. I just hold their hand and say, you're safe here. And I mean it, because I made sure of it. My story isn't about revenge. It's about remembering who I was, who I still am after they forgot. And now, they remember. But more importantly, so do I.